Alright, let's begin. In 1953, two scientists were working feverishly in a lab, trying to crack the structure of a molecule so elusive it was nicknamed the secret of life. Their breakthrough discovery would change the world forever. So who are these scientists and why is their discovery such a big deal? Well, today I'll tell you how their accidental discovery unveiled the hidden story of DNA. First, let's start with a bit of history. Back in the late 1800s, scientists knew that traits like eye color and height were inherited from parents to offspring. But they had absolutely no idea how this magical transmission occurred. Fast forward to 1869, when a Swiss physician named Friedrich Miescher stumbled upon something weird while studying white blood cells taken from used surgical bandages. You see, Miescher was trying to isolate proteins from the nuclei of these white blood cells. Proteins were thought to be the key to understanding inheritance at the time. But what he found instead was a strange substance that was rich in nitrogen and phosphorus, but not much else. He ended up naming this mysterious gooey substance nuclein, which was later renamed to nucleic acid. And then it was discovered that nucleic acid was made of smaller components called nucleotides. Each nucleotide contained a sugar, a phosphate group, and one of four nitrogenous bases: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. So with this breakthrough, science was now aware of the basic building blocks of what we now call DNA. But it was until 1944 that the scientific community realized that DNA was actually the genetic material responsible for inheritance. To understand how scientists made this realization, we have to rewind a bit. In the early 20th century, biologists believed that proteins, not nucleic acids, carried genetic information. Why? Well, proteins are made of amino acids, which could form an endless variety of chains, making them seem like a more likely candidate for the complex task of carrying genetic information. On the other hand, DNA seemed pretty boring in comparison. It appeared to only be made of 4 different nucleotides, so it seemed highly unlikely that it could hold the instructions needed to build and maintain an entire organism. But then, along comes a scientist named Oswald Avery, who, along with his colleagues, conducted a series of experiments on bacteria. They wanted to find out which part of the bacteria cells was responsible for triggering an immune response in mice. And here's where things got interesting. The team knew that if they injected mice with live bacteria, the mice would become sick. But if they heated the bacteria before injection, the mice would stay healthy. It suggested that some part of the bacteria was causing the illness, but only if it was alive. So they began to remove parts of the bacteria one by one to see what was necessary to make the mice sick. First, they removed the cell walls and injected them into the mice. The mice stayed healthy. Then they removed the cell membranes and injected them. Again, the mice stayed healthy. Finally, they removed both the RNA and the proteins and injected them. But to their surprise, the mice still got sick. This meant that neither RNA nor protein could be the carriers of genetic information. So then they decided to destroy the remaining component, DNA, and guess what? The mice became immune to pneumonia. This experiment provided strong evidence that DNA, not protein, was the genetic material. But despite this breakthrough, many scientists were still skeptical. DNA seemed too simple to hold the secrets of life. Now, let's jump back to 1953. At this point, scientists knew that DNA was the genetic material, but they had no idea how it worked or even what it looked like. They only knew that it was made of nucleotides. Like I mentioned earlier, each nucleotide has a sugar, a phosphate group, and one of 4 nitrogenous bases. These bases were adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. Enter James Watson and Francis Crick, 2 young scientists eager to crack the structure of this mysterious molecule. You see, Watson and Crick were working at the Cavendish Laboratory in Cambridge, England. And there was a race underway to determine the structure of DNA. The winner would be the first to figure out how all these parts fit together to form the molecule. And although Watson and Crick didn't discover DNA, they did make use of some previously obtained X-ray data of DNA fibers produced by another scientist named Rosalind Franklin. However, Franklin died of cancer in 1958. Just 2 years after Watson and Crick won the Nobel Prize for discovering the structure of DNA. And many believe that, had she lived longer, she may have been a co-winner of the Nobel Prize. Unfortunately, Watson and Crick didn't share Franklin's data with her before creating their model. And Franklin was very upset about this when she learned of it. Regardless, this data was instrumental in helping them determine the structure of DNA. So what did they find? Well, they discovered that DNA had a helical shape, similar to a spiral staircase. This became known as the double helix. They also found that the molecule was made of two strands that ran in opposite directions. And here's the kicker. The two strands were held together by hydrogen bonds between the nitrogenous bases. Specifically, adenine always paired with thymine and guanine always paired with cytosine. They also found that the sugar and phosphate groups were on the outside of the molecule, protecting the more reactive bases. Once Watson and Crick published their findings, it was clear that they had solved one of the most important puzzles in biology. But wait, there's more. The impact of their discovery was truly far-reaching. Here are just a few ways that the discovery of the structure of DNA changed the world. First, it helped scientists understand genetic diseases. With knowledge of the structure of DNA, researchers could now begin to study how genes work and what goes wrong when things don't work properly. This has led to breakthroughs in treating diseases like cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, and Huntington's disease. Next, it gave rise to forensic science. Before the discovery of DNA, forensic science was in its infancy. But with a better understanding of genetics, scientists could now compare DNA samples from crime scenes to those of suspects, helping to solve crimes that would have been impossible to solve before. Third, it launched the field of genetic engineering. Once scientists knew the structure of DNA, they could begin to manipulate it in ways that were never before possible. This led to the development of genetically modified organisms, gene therapy, and other exciting technologies. As you can see, the discovery of the structure of DNA was truly revolutionary. It's hard to overstate its importance in advancing our understanding of biology and medicine. And yet, despite its importance, it almost didn't happen. Who knows what other breakthroughs await us in the future? Maybe one day we'll be able to cure diseases that seem like science fiction today. Just think about that. The discovery of the structure of DNA is a true testament to the power of scientific inquiry. From the early days of Messer and Franklin to the groundbreaking work of Watson and Crick, each scientist building on the work of those who came before them, it's a story that reminds us that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the most unexpected places. Who knows what other amazing discoveries await us in the future? If we can unlock the secrets of DNA, then there's no telling what else we can achieve. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed learning about the discovery of the structure of DNA. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think? Is there anything that surprised you about this story? What do you think of the process of scientific discovery? Or maybe you have an idea for a future episode of the story behind the stat. Let me know in the comments below. Also, please make sure to like and subscribe, because together we can explore the fascinating stories that lie behind the statistics that shape our world. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.